Poinsettia, Chapter 24. Gavin straightened the tree skirt at the base of the tree as the children converged about him to decorate it with the ornaments of which they were so proud. He had arrived rather early in the evening, which was risky in itself, being such a bright and sunny day, to bring the tree that he had promised. Still, it was worth it to experience the happiness all about him. In the next instant, however, he felt a body spring onto his back, little legs wrapping around his waist and little arms about his neck. "Hi, Mr. Gavin! Merry Christmas!" "Danny!" Sister Bernadette gasped. "Get down off him! What's gotten into you?" Before the child could dismount, Gavin stood with a warm chuckle. The child hung piggyback on his body and rested her head on his shoulder and her own arm. "Merry Christmas, Danny. My, you are quite a spunky one, aren't you?" "I'm spunky, too," one of the boys shouted. This got some of the other children to either laugh or start chattering. "More poinsettias?" Danny asked. "Of course, the official St. Raphael's Hospital flower." He reached out, taking one of the silk poinsettias, and reached back to place it under her hair. "And now you can be a little Christmas flower, too." "Am I pretty?" "Always," he said in a cheerful voice, bending down to let her slide off his back. "This is quite a beautiful tree," Sister Bernadette remarked. "I don't know how you do it." "I go into the woods and chop it down." "Oh, honestly," she scoffed. He smiled at her, giving her a warm feeling all over. "What is it that I do?" "You make the hospital feel like a home." "You're like a super daddy," Danny shouted, throwing out her arms in excitement. "Super daddy? My, what an honor that is." "Super daddy, super daddy," the children began to chant as they overtook Gavin, bringing him to the ground and crawling all about him and over him as he stammered and laughed, leaving poor Sister Bernadette trying desperately to get them back under control. Lord McCarran glared at his pocket watch. He let out a very agitated growl. "Where is he? He's late." The other board members looked back and forth between one another, unsure of what to say about the situation. However, only a few moments later, the door opened, and in waltzed Gavin proudly, taking long, gallant strides to his place at the head of the table. He was so regal. No one could deny that. Calmly, he took his seat and brought down the gavel. "Good evening. Happy Yule. Merry Christmas." "Where the hell have you been?" Lord McCarran shouted. "As if I needed to answer to you, Lord McCarran," Gavin chuckled. "But 'tis the season for giving, so I shall grace you with an answer. I have spent all afternoon putting up the Christmas tree and playing with the children." "You blew us off to play with snot-nosed brats. They are the whole reason for the Board of Trustees to be in existence. Your displeasure makes me wonder about your motives." He leaned forward, standing as he pressed his fingers onto the top of the table. "I wanted to say our final words before the coming of the new year." With that, he stood and removed envelopes from the inside of his waistcoat and began to pass them to the present members. Therefore, excluding the absent Mr. Haggard, Mr. Borders, and Mr. O'Brien. Eagerly expecting a generous Christmas bonus, the men tore into their envelopes. "Is this your idea of a sick joke?" Lord McCarran said, standing to his feet and slamming his hands down on the table. Another leaf fell from the poinsettia in the center, joining others that had fallen during the meetings. "Final goodbyes after all the nonsense you have put us through? Are you stepping down after all that?" "Do you see me laughing, Lord McCarran?" Gavin said very flatly. "I wanted to issue my final goodbyes to you men." "You're really leaving the board?" "Oh, no, dear man. I'm not going anywhere. It is all of you who will not be coming back." "Impossible!" "Absolutely fair," Gavin spat, slamming down his fist, making it very clear that he was dead serious. The other men flinched back, wanting to avoid any chance of being the target of his fury. "None of you seem to take me or my rules seriously. It's time that all of you did. I will not tolerate men who are supposed to be my friends, my partners, my colleagues, my trusted members to take advantage of and steal from me. And what's more, I will not tolerate them stealing from these children. The morning Mrs. Borders gave me the minutes yesterday morning. Between them and the fraudulent financial files, and corrupt ones at that, you've all branded yourselves as scoundrels. If I cannot trust you, I have no need for you." "This is outrageous," Lord McCann roared. "Someone speak up against this tyrant fool." "It would be wise of you to settle down," Gavin said. "Be thankful that I'm merely dismissing you all. I could have you all arrested." "This isn't right," another member shouted. "No, it isn't," Gavin replied flatly, glaring with cold, hard, sharp emerald eyes. "What all of you have tried to do to these children is unacceptable and disgraceful." He stepped back. "Now don't fret. It's not like you men needed this job. You are all wealthy philanthropists, after all. Now, let's not keep each other away from our Yuletide celebration preparations. Meeting adjourned." "Just that simple?" Lord McCarran asked. "For now," was all Gavin said in reply before vacating the boardroom. Lord McCarran let out a roar as he snatched up some of the poinsettia leaves. "Can you believe this?" "Lord McCarran," one of the other board members sighed. "Let's just drop it now. Lord McIntyre is right. He could have had us all arrested for our fraudulent ways. I consider this, as well as we all should, a very humiliating but generous offer. Let's cut our losses and move on to new legitimate ventures." "I won't stand for it." "Then you just sit here and throw your childish tantrums. You're the very root of this whole big mess we've been caught up in for the last 3 years. I lay what happened to Mr. O'Brien's son and his friends on your hands. Now enough of this. Let's all go home." The remainder of the board members stood up, putting on their coats and hats and gloves and retrieving their canes and umbrellas. Without so much as another word, they filed out, leaving Lord McCarran alone to slump in his seat in a scowling silence. He narrowed his eyes at the remainder of the poinsettia on the table. Nothing for a moment, but then he let out a loud roar, sitting forward and swinging his arms, knocking it onto the floor, setting the soil in a mess all about. He stomped on what was left of the pretty red leaves, crushing and killing the flowers.